It all began in 1920 with the vision and foresight of a West Texas State Normal College professor named Hattie Anderson. All around the Panhandle, Dr. Anderson saw the potential to preserve the living past and stories of the Panhandle pioneers. She set to work recruiting like-minded people to the Panhandle-Plains Historical Society. Their goal? Collect and preserve the human and natural history of the region. They began soliciting support for their efforts in the form of society memberships. Not even the Great Depression daunted their task of creating a museum to preserve the Panhandle's legacy. The hardworking people of this area helped to make Professor Anderson's dream a reality. Through their generosity, hard work, and perseverance, the Panhandle-Plains Historical Museum opened its doors to the public in 1933. For the past 80 years, PPHM has been a tribute to the legacy of Hattie Anderson and the Panhandle-Plains Historical Society. Today, the museum has over 2 million artifacts, including art, history, paleontology, archaeology, and petroleum collections. The society members, donors, community, staff, and volunteers have held Professor Anderson's words to heart. It is the sacred duty of ours to collect the record of life here and hand this on to the children of the future. And we believe in the future, our people will point with pride to their museum and historical society. With that, we celebrate 80 years of the Panhandle-Plains Historical Museum, preserving a legacy.
At the age of 62, with 2 college degrees in history, I am amazed at the fortitude it must have taken for this little lady to leave rural Missouri and venture to the Texas Panhandle, which was literally a world away in the early 1920s. I am in awe of this woman who left all she knew to start a career. I now venture to Canyon once a year and swell with pride that my great-aunt had a part in establishing the Panhandle-Plains Historical Museum. When we went to the museum, Aunt Hattie took us on a personal guided tour explaining in detail each and every exhibit. I recall being puzzled about the barbed wire. Here was something I could see every day in Missouri, and Aunt Hattie's museum had a whole wall of the stuff. When I voiced my question, "What's that doing in a museum?" my dad tried to cut me off, but Aunt Hattie heard me, and I quickly got an education about the importance of barbed wire to the Texas Panhandle. Ron Anderson.
I love to come here. And I tell people, especially once teachers retire, to go, oh, you need to come to the museum. We can always use volunteers, and it is so much fun. I think it's very important for young people, and it impacts our school children. I do dinosaurs, as the kids call it. I know it's paleontology, but dinosaurs is so much more fun. And I always feel like they go away, especially from people of the Plains, with a better idea about the people who came to live here and hardships they had. And I know we've had an exhibit on the Dust Bowl, and how they stuck with it, where they came from, the fact that we advertised in Germany and all over Europe for people to come to the Panhandle. And I think they have a clear idea of who went before. One of the things I always remind them when they're here, and I'm in People of the Plains, is that they are also people of the Plains. And that no matter where they go, they will always keep in mind that that's where they started, in the Plains, the Texas Panhandle. And I want to explain to them also that the Plains go from way south of us all the way into Canada. And I think sometimes they don't realize how gigantic the Plains really are.
Well, I'm a history buff, kind of, and it has a great impact on me, you know, for history. And I went down there Saturday afternoon, last Saturday, just to walk around and see what it was like, and it looked like that museum has really grown a lot in the last several years. The one exhibit I came across that really impressed me was the one about the Indians skinning a buffalo. And there was a little video screen there too that showed them doing it, you know, taking out the insides and all of that. And That was very interesting.
Hi, I'm Bob Anderson, and I'm one of Hattie Anderson's great-nephews. This summer we visited the museum and canyon, and it brought back many memories. I remember meeting Hattie and seeing her at many summer gatherings in Missouri when she would come back to see her family, particularly for the family reunions. The one thing that impressed me there, she was very proper, but also very kind. And she was about the only relative that consistently asked about what we were doing in school and what we were reading. Her emphasis on education has stuck with me. Two of my younger brothers and I have both become teachers. And even though Ron, who also traveled with me in 1962 to Canyon, is retired, I'm still working at it. Ron and I and our parents in 1962 came down and spent a good portion of a week in Canyon. I remember that Ron and I had to stay at another house because Aunt Hattie's was too small, only a 2-bedroom. But what was most impressive was all of the bookcases in her house. The decor in most of the rooms was floor-to-ceiling bookcases. I thought it was fantastic, a wonderful way to decorate, and it's influenced me. My wife and I in all of our homes have at least one large bookcase to hold some of our treasures, the books that we have kept for a long time. We went to the museum. It was much smaller in those days, although the impressive stone entrance was still there. That I do recall. Inside, it was maybe only a couple of rooms. The one thing that I do remember is the wall of barbed wire, which I'm glad to see is at least preserved in drawers now, if not up on the wall. This summer when we came back down, I thought that you have expanded it in wonderful ways. I am really impressed with the interactiveness of a lot of it, of the recreation of the small town, and how students as well as other visitors can go in and have a sense of what a lot of the buildings were like. That's really wonderful. I am so glad that to be associated through Aunt Hattie with what she's done. It's amazing how coming in the 1920s to Canyon, receiving her doctorate in history when she was only in her 30s, and then continuing on and working with the Historical Society there and the museum has left a wonderful legacy of hers. It was great to see it, and good to talk with you. Thank you.
I'm Amy David, Associate Director for Museum Advancement. This year, the Panhandle-Plains Historical Museum celebrates its 80th anniversary in remembrance of the pioneers, visionaries, and community members who created it. Their legacy continues with you. Paul Tsongas said, "We are a continuum. Just as we reach back to our ancestors for our fundamental values, so we, as guardians of that legacy, must reach ahead to our children and their children. And we do so with a sense of sacredness in that reaching." Those words could have been written when the Panhandle-Plains Historical Museum opens its doors to the public on April 14, 1933, or even today as we enthusiastically envision PPHM's next 80 years. Through the Great Depression, dust storms, social change, national conflict, and everyday challenges, museum leaders charged with the stewardship of a heritage have never wavered in their commitment to the institution's mission and core values. This is the legacy of PPHM that today we reach ahead to future generations. Certainly, the small handful of individuals who in 1910 shared their interest in history and historical artifacts with each other were not contemplating the notion of legacy. But, quote, right then and there, a match was struck and a little fire kindled, unquote. From that little fire, an institution was forged. Over time, personal dedication and financial commitment continually built upon that original foundation. The milestones accumulated and the legacy grew. Today, those who add a chapter to the legacy of so many do so by looking ahead and reaching into the future through the lens of our shared core values. As the current stewards of this legacy at PPHM, this is our charge and our responsibility. We are a continuum.
Hattie had a vision. She started the wheels in motion. But you, the staff, the board, the volunteers, the members, you keep the vision alive. She started the Historical Society. She pushed to get the museum built. Sounds like she even ruled it with an iron hand. But she retired from her positions and it still prospered. She passed from this life and it still grew. On behalf of my family, I would like to thank you for keeping Aunt Hattie's museum alive. Greg Anderson.